Great. I hope you guys are doing awesome. Let's get started. Let us say if I ask you a question. We have built a warehouse. Is the data stored in the warehouse? Is it valuable? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
If the data stored in the warehouse is valuable, does it need to be secured? Yes. We
Yes.
are dealing with the data and the data is stored in a data warehouse and it is definitely valuable. And anything valuable need to be secured, right? What is security in terms of information technology, in terms of data, according to you,
So
Parveen?
protecting the data from the hackers.
Okay, very good. Any thoughts, Malini?
Any malware attack, so it should be secure from all this.
Okay, awesome. So security is the protection of information, systems, and assets from the harm, threats, or unauthorized access. We are protecting the information, systems, and assets from harms, threats, or anybody accessing it who doesn't have a access. Through security, we are ensuring the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of whatever is being protected. In this case, data and the systems are protected. That is security. Now that we understood, how is the security done? What is the main principle of the security in Fabric? Any thoughts? Usually, as a part of the security in Fabric, the main principle through the security is implemented in Fabric is through use cases. Basically, what they say in Fabric is security is better implemented through the use cases. When I say use case, right? What is the a particular user going to do? The group of users, whether they need a specific data access, and also what kind of a interaction they are trying to do with the data. Once that use case is identified, what is the use case? Basically, is he going to access the specific data and which is the specific data? And also what kind of interaction is going to have with the data? Once that use case is identified, Fabric provides the permission. Okay. There are, based on the different use cases, different users would get a different permissions. For example, we have a data engineer needs access to the data in Lakehouse to develop the downstream and data product. See, this is the use case we are talking about. This is one of the use case. So based on that, the required permissions will be provided. Then we have a data analyst or business analyst. They'll not be working in the lakehouse, but they'll be querying the database. They just need a query permission. So the use case here is just querying the data. And then we have data scientists. Data scientists consume the data from a lakehouse through Apache Spark. So we need to provide only that access to the data scientist. You're getting it, right? So based on the use case, provide the access and secure the data. That is the mantra in Microsoft Fabric. Then report creators. So they need to build the reports to share with the report. So based on that, provide a certain access. And report consumers. So just need to view the data in the Power BI. So based on that, provide the access and secure the data. That is how the permissions are provided in the Microsoft Fabric. Now we understood the main principle is through use case. So let us understand how this principle is implemented by understanding the different security levels. First and foremost thing is Microsoft offers a flexible multi-layer security model that will give the access to the various users based on the various access requirements. So what it means is the permissions are granted to the users based on the tasks done by those users, based on the risk, and also to ensure that the data which is there in the warehouse, that we are protecting that. If there is any sensitive data, that should be protected. So there is a multi-layer security model that grants the permissions based on the tasks and ensuring that there is a less exposure to the sensitive data, and also by maintaining the secure environment. So the security levels are, you have first security level is Microsoft Entra ID authentication. Second one is fabric access only. The third one is the data security. These are the three important levels of security in the security model of Fabric. Let us understand them one by one. When I say Microsoft Entra ID authentication, it is more or less whether the user has a Microsoft ID to use the Microsoft product. Earlier, it is called as a identity authentication. The same thing is being called as a Microsoft Entra ID authentication. So as a part of this, what is checked is whether user can authenticate to the Azure identity and access the management service. Basically, this is the first level entry. It is kind of a main entrance entry, whether the person has access to it or not. The second one is, so basically Microsoft has so many products. Within that, we are talking about the Fabric. So whether the user has a Fabric access or not. This is the second level check based on the product. Fabric is a data analytics product, right? Data analytics platform. So for that, whether the user has access or not. The last one is the data security. Based on the items in the workspace, whether user has the access permission to perform the requested action as specific data such as table or a file. That will be checked at this level. You guys get it? At a high level, it is Entra ID, then Fabric, then the data security. Now, within the data security, we have different aspects like security at the workspace level, security at the item level, security at a granular permissions level, security at the one lake data access level, which is in a way tied to this also. Kind of this can be grouped as a part of the granular permissions only. We are talking about the security in Fabric. Even though you may not use this directly, you should have the knowledge of this. Because when you are talking to your admins, if they start using these jargons, you should know, okay, do I have a access at a workspace level? Do I have a workspace at a data level? Do I have workspace at the Fabric platform level? You should know that. At the data level, we have workspace role, item permission, granular permissions, and also one lake data access control. When I say workspace, we already know. I have already shown you. Workspace can be created by users. Within workspace, you have data items. The data items are like lakehouse, warehouse, and semantic model. And also we have one lake, right? We are talking about at the workspace level, item level. Within item lakehouse, you may have a table that is granular. Within the table, you may have a row and column that is at a granular level. You guys are getting it, right? This picture is so good, right? So workspace level, data item level, granular level. In a way, one lake and granular are kind of interchangeable. As the picture depicts, the permissions or security levels can be taught in all these levels. Now, workspace permissions. You create a workspace depending upon the project, right? Workspace will allow us to manage the ownership and access policies through the workspace roles. Within a workspace, you can create the data items such as lakehouse, data warehouse, and semantic models. So this is a workspace. Workspace is a level at which you can create the projects. Within workspace, we can create the data items. When we talk about the workspace, they are nothing but a collaborative environment where users can create, organize, and manage the groups of data items. Okay, data items can be lakehouse, data warehouse, semantic models, data factory, and multiple things. So now, the moment workspace is created and certain users are part of that workspace, there are some already pre-configured permissions. That's what happens. But those pre-configured permissions can be we can change that. Those permissions can be adjusted. So whatever the permissions which are inherited from a original workspace, we can change that. And we can grant the access to the specific items within the needing to add a user to the workspace role. Basically, what we are saying is you have a workspace. Within that, there are data items. Now, the moment you have a user as a part of workspace, he or she can access all the data items in that. But depending upon the project, a Parveen may be used to only access the lake house. The Malini may be used to only access the warehouse, depending upon the requirement. Let us say you are working in a healthcare company, fabric security admin. You need to provide access to the different people based on the use case, right? Then you have to think, okay, if I have to provide a permission to the data engineer, what and all permissions we have to access based on whatever you know. He or she should be able to create the fabric items, such as lake houses, data warehouses, reports in existing workspace. Obviously, he or she has to read the data from the lake house. So, like that, based on the role and the use case, you being a security admin, you have to provide that specific role, okay, within that workspace. What happens is workspace roles defines the what kind of a action user can perform and what kind of a data they can access. Maybe if you really see, the same or similar thing is repeated in a different way. Are you observing that? Because that is how it is. Like there are four main workspace roles. First one is admin role. As we understand, the admin guy can view, modify, share, and also manage all the content and also manage the permissions for the space. After the admin, it is a member. He can do everything except this. If you observe, he or she can view, modify, share all content data in the workspace. But he does not have a permission to manage the workspace settings or a user access. After the member, we have contributor. He or she can view and modify all the content in the data, but can create the new fabric items, work with existing content. He cannot create something. Actually, he is a contributor. He can view and modify. It should be cannot. Cannot create new fabric items. He has to work with the existing content. What is the last one? Viewer. Can view all the content and data in the workspace, but cannot modify or create new data. These are the four workspace roles. The next one is item. We understood the how security is handled within the workspace. Now let us understand how security is handled at the item level. What is item here? Item permissions manage the access to the specific fabric items within a workspace. As we already know, items are created within the workspace. These permissions allow users to access one or more items without assigning them to a workspace role. Basically, a person who has to access the items may not have a workspace role. Okay. So, for example, a particular person has a contributor for access for several months. After some time, he needs only the view access. What we can do is we can remove the contributor role and we can only give them a view access. Basically, depending upon what role he or she, based on the use case and role, only those roles can be kept. And what the principle here is, at any point of time, be a conjuse. Conjuse means a person who doesn't spend at all. When you are providing the permissions, you should be conjuse. Provide the least privileges. Like, don't be generous while providing the permissions because we don't know. Only provide what is required, what is asked. That is the principle. So, that is at item level. Now, granular permissions. What is granular permissions, Malini?
Tables and its rows and columns.
Yes. Whatever the permissions which are applied below the data item, that is a granular permission. Whenever you have provided the workspace or item permissions, if they are not providing the enough control, sometimes it happens. Then you can go to the more granular permissions such as table, row level security, file level security, column level security. All those things can be handled at the granular permissions. When we talk about the granular permissions, we can do that through couple of things. One is SQL analytics endpoint. We can look at the granular permissions at the warehouse and one lake. As I said, one lake is a separate. Also, we can have a granular permissions within that, and also at the semantic model level. In all the levels, there are two important things. One is you can grant the permission, you can deny the permission, you can revoke the permissions for that particular object. What we are talking here is we are drilled down to the level of table. We can grant the permission to the SQL object. SQL objects can be a table. I mean, in terms of RDBMS, it is a store procedure. All these are objects. How will we do that? Through the DCL commands. So you can just watch it. I don't know whether you guys are exploring some of our SQL videos. These are explained in bit more detail in our SQL. And then in addition to the object level security, we can also enforce the advanced security measures like row level security, which restrict the data access based on the user context to the rows. Okay. And then we have column, specific columns within a table, and dynamic data masking. We discussed about this also. Wherever the data is very sensitive, we can mask it at all the levels. Either we are talking about the warehouse or a SQL endpoint or a semantic model, or like is also, I mean, similar. You can have the security at the object level. You can do that through a grant, deny, and revoke. And advanced is the row level, column level, and dynamic data masking. Just to summarize, the fabric security is based on the main principle on which the fabric enables or disables the security is based on the use case. And the security model includes three important models: Microsoft Entra ID, fabric, and data items. Within the data items, we have workspace, item level permission, then granular permissions, and also one lake is in a way we can consider that as a granular permission. Within workspace, we have different roles. Admin role is there. We have the member. After member, it is contributor. After contributor, it is viewer. That is how it is handled in the workspace. Now, data items are also handled in a like lake house and all those things. And then the granular permissions comes into picture at an object level. We can grant, we can deny or revoke the permissions. And we can go and provide the permissions at an advanced level, like a row level, column level, and also make the data masking happen as a part of the security. That's all I wanted to cover today. That's all for now. Like and subscribe and turn on notifications for future videos. Thank you.